Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 299 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How's it going today, Richard?
It is going very well, Seth. How are you doing this fine morning?
I am doing super well. I've been having a lot of fun playing Magic lately. I know, surprise, surprise, but seriously. But before we get into all that, we got another co-host, Krim. How are you this fine Monday, Krim?
Going all right. I've got to reset my little recording area, but and set that up. But other than that, everything else has been good.
You moved recently, right?
Yep. Or at least for the studio stuff. So might be a little more echoey today, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, you sound pretty good to me. So anyway, today we have some pretty interesting topics. We wanted to talk about Standard, which we just had bannings now 2 weeks ago, which has given all of us a lot of time to play Standard. So we want to get kind of thoughts on Standard, where it's at after our second round of bannings, what we've been playing, all that kind of stuff. We also got a new secret Lair drop that we wanted to mention, and another big topic that's come up this week is leaks, because Commander Legends has been leaking pretty rapidly over the last week or so. We're not going to talk about leaked cards, so you don't got to worry about that if you're trying to avoid leaks, but we want to talk a little bit about how we interact with leaks and leaks in Magic from a more meta perspective, and then of course answer your Fishmail. So that's the overview for today. Before we get into it, a reminder that our show today is brought to you by Card Conduit. And if you've ever tried to buy list your Magic cards, oh my goodness, it's a lot of work. You got to do all this sorting, you got to do all this typing, you got to do all this shipping. It is not a whole lot of fun. Well, Card Conduit, they got you covered. They are the easiest way to sell Magic cards. And if you're looking to avoid all those hassles I was just mentioning and all the time it takes to sell your cards, this new service from the folks over at Card Hoarder will sort, grade, and sell your Magic cards for you. And once your shipment is processed, you'll get the proceeds minus their fee. And right now, you can get a 10% discount by heading over to cardconduit.com/goldfish. So thank you so much to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic. Let's start with Standard. So we had, 2 weeks ago today, I think, actually, or was it last week? So much happens in Magic these days.
Yeah.
Is it just a week now? So we had bannings.
I think it's been a week.
We had bannings a week ago. We had Omnath gone. Of course, Uro was already gone from a little bit before that. But the most recent round, Omnath, Lucky Clover, escaped to the wilds. So we've had a week to play this new Standard format. What do you guys think? How have you been enjoying Standard? Is Standard fixed finally after this latest round of bannings? What has your experience been in our new Standard format?
Well, I've actually really been enjoying it. I could tell I've been having a lot of fun because I can build a random deck. Pure pile, it looks like a binder of cards were thrown into a deck and still able to manage to get a win. Right. And so on top of that, the best decks right now, which seems like there isn't one particularly, right? I think the CFB Pro event or whatever had the 10% of the field. The best deck was Rakdos midrange. And I think that if that's the case, that's actually a really good spot, right? 10% of the meta is one deck. And maybe that's because it's a little bit early right now and we haven't had the pros sit down, take a crack at what's good. And it does seem like a lot, there's a decent amount of blinking decks. Choose your pick of Yorion. But Yorion not as the companion, Yorion just in the deck.
Yeah, Yorion has definitely been on the rise. I would say in just the last couple days, towards the end of the week, people have started moving back to Yorion, which I guess kind of the cool thing about Yorion is we're not just seeing straight up blue-white decks, but we've seen some Mardu Yorion decks. We've seen Selesnya Yorion decks. There's been a bunch of different color combinations, which I think is cool. And as far as diversity, that's the thing I'm most excited about right now. My experience playing Arena has been that the format has been really diverse. And for the first time in, I don't even know how long, over this weekend, I actually played a lot of Standard just for fun. Which it sounds so weird to say that because that's just
playing Magic for fun. What are you, a casual? Come on, Seth.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I play Magic for fun sometimes, but usually it's like modern, or maybe that's my excuse to like do Legacy. If I have just like free time to play Magic, over the last couple years, it's almost never standard. That's what I choose just for like my fun Magic playing time. But this weekend, I could have played a Legacy League. I could have played a Modern League. I could have done a draft, and I actually just chose to play standard because I've been enjoying the format. Like, it's diverse. I feel like you can do a lot of different things. There's nothing that's obviously broken in the format. There's no mana doublers. There's no one card that you're like, oh my god, I'm going to play this 50% of the time. I can't beat it no matter what I do. And it hasn't been like that in standard for a long time. So I'm like thrilled. And I think the tournaments back this out too. If you look at the tournaments over the weekend, yes, they're not like GPs or Pro Tour level tournaments, but still, they're pretty diverse. Like, some of them have like 7 or 8 different decks in their top 8s. Others have like 5 or 6. And they have a huge, like, just look at the decks that won these tournaments. There's like a Gruul deck that won a tournament. Dimir Control won a tournament. We've had Mono Green Food win tournaments. We've had an Izzet deck win a tournament. So it's kind of all over the place as far as what's good. So I've actually been loving it. This is the most fun I've had playing standard in months and months and months. But what about you, Richard? Have you been standarding at all?
Yeah, I did what everyone did and went to the Throne of Eldraine card list and started brewing. And I found a card that people were really hyped about during preview season, and it never panned out because it was overshadowed by like literally everything else from the set. But I've been playing Feasting Troll King in standard, and
okay,
Mono Green Food I think is really good. I started playing like a mono green variant, but everything kept getting removed due to all the removal standards. So I started playing Garrick's Harbinger, which is hexproof from black. I started playing Wicked Wolf, which gets indestructible, and then Feasting Troll King, which just comes back and just basically outgrinds anyone. So I've been playing Mono Green Food. Been seeing like basically every deck you can possibly see in standard right now. There's these green base shells, similar to what I'm playing. There's just the straight mono green aggro with Swarm Shambler. You have Rakdos mid-range. You have people trying to mono red. You have rogue decks still going on. You have Dimir Control. All the Blink decks, the Adventure decks. So it's just like mid-range fest in standard now. I don't think I see like an unfair, like the most unfair deck is like the Blink deck or something. Like, it's not really, there's nothing crazy going on. Ugin hasn't really showed up at all. So yeah, I think we are in like mid-range fest standard right now. And I think it will probably be that way. I don't think, like, standard breaks pretty fast nowadays, right? Like, a couple days after the format releases, whatever you're seeing in tournament results is usually the meta. Like, gone are the days where the Pro Tour hits and then the whole thing changes. It's like kind of what it is. So I think standard is fixed, question mark. I think Wizards has finally done it after the 19,000th ban. We've gotten here, and then we just gotta hold our breath until the next set where they release more broken cards and see what happens.
They finally fixed it. True, after all the mana doubling, all the ramp, all the free cheaty spells, like, yeah.
I think it's actually really simple when it comes down to it. And when they got rid of Omnath, that was like the last free spell left over. And if you go back through the last year and a half or whatever of standard that has been just so bad, that's been consistently the problem. Fires of Invention, a free spell that doubles your mana. Wilderness Reclamation, a free spell that doubles your mana. Like, many of the problematic cards in standard have been very similar to Omnath, another free spell if you play it at turn 5 with a fetch land that doubles your mana, essentially. Like, it's so simple. Like, just avoid those cards. And now all those cards are out of the format. We're talking about standard being awesome and grindy and, like, diverse. It's really not that hard. Like, it seems very simple for Wizards to avoid doing this in the future. Whether or not they will do that, or they view things the same way that I'm viewing them, and like, remains to be seen. But it doesn't seem that hard, you know, from my perspective, to keep standard in a relatively functional state. Just stop printing free spells that double your mana. Like, come on, like, shouldn't Wizards have already known that? It blows my mind that we even had to go through this last year and a half, because those are lessons that we've talked about for like decades now. If free spells are broken, we're just like, hey, let's just print a bunch of free spells in standard. This will be good.
I think the thing is, like, they do know. It's just that's what they wanted, right, for the last couple of years. I don't know why that was the design they wanted to go with, but like they know, right? There's no way you just accidentally you let these cards slip through. I have to assume they know, because I mean, maybe one, sure, but when there's a ton of free spells, cheating on mana, I find it a little problematic. And they had to have known, and now that they definitely learned, I hope they take this and they they keep that in mind.
That's a bold assumption that they've learned anything.
Okay. Also true. Maybe I'm that is quite the bold assumption. But hopefully we'll see this 3 years down the line when we go to whatever the set is at that time, because this stuff we won't see them acknowledging it for 3 or 4 years. The response is usually slower from Wizards. At least it seems slower because they're building 4 years ahead or something like that.
So this is all part of fire design and pushing power level, and obviously they pushed it too far. But they're trying to push power level while keeping everything balanced, right? That's called power creep. How can they keep Magic interesting without power creep? Every creature has a free spell attached to it nowadays, right? They come with an ETB. When they make literal free spells like Delve and Phyrexian Mana, it's just too broken, right? When they make all your other spells free with mana doublers, it's too broken, right? Where do you draw the line? Or do you think we can just go back to playing a literal 5 mana 4/4 flying vigilance, call it a day and have fun? Or do we need a staple 3 spells on it to make it interesting? Because you can balance standard at any level, right? But Wizards is choosing to keep increasing power level, and then I guess it's harder to balance. But theoretically, we are balanced. If we are balanced right now, creatures today are way more powerful than they were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, etc. So do you guys think we'll just keep running into this problem, or how can Wizards keep the game interesting without power creep?
So I would say I think right now Standard is still very high powered. We don't have the broken mana doubler stuff, but there's still a lot of very powerful cards in Standard, even with, I don't even know, 10 cards banned at this point or whatever that wouldn't have rotated yet. So I actually think Wizards can have a pretty high powered Standard that is still power creepy. Crocs is still a power creepy card, and there is a lot like the Great Henge or Embercleave. Those are very, very strong Magic cards. So I feel like they can keep a pretty high power level, but just avoid those certain things that the last year have shown ends up breaking the format, which seems to primarily be free spells and things that double your mana, or going too heavy on ramp spells. So I think we're going to keep power creeping. I can't imagine Wizards pulling it back. I think sadly the days of Baneslayer Angel or Sarah Angel being something that you can play and actually win with, or even play with a straight face, I think we maybe have just moved past that in the era of Magic that we're in now. But I'm kind of okay with high-powered Standard as long as it's not broken Standard, where one deck's 50 or 70% of the meta, and I think they can achieve that goal by just, avoiding the things that caused all the problems over the past year. You can still print really powerful cards, just don't have them double your mana or be free spells.
Yeah. I mean, when the game is, a lot of, resource management, and you have, your cards make it so that you have unlimited resources or double the resources out of nowhere, it leads to just a lot of broken things.
Yeah, I actually dislike this high power level, but I think the secret to keeping Magic interesting is the flavor, as weird as that sounds, right? And it doesn't have to be actual stories and backdrops and things like that. But the rogue deck was very popular just because they were rogues, right? If you replace that with a tribe, say skeletons, I don't think the rogue deck is as popular. Right? I think part of the allure of it is I'm playing rogues, right? Or I get to play zombies or things like that, right? So I think they could keep things interesting by doing flavor things or world setting, the Eldraine fairy tale things. A lot of the cards are just inherently interesting because it's a fairy tale character, or it's a strange world or things like that, right? I don't think you need power creep to sell the packs. I think using flavor and things like that maybe even using other people's IP is a positive or negative. I don't know, right? It detracts from the Magic world, but it brings it a different world, right? That's a way they're trying to sell packs, right? So, I just think things other than power, right? Because it's just so high powered now. Like I was talking to Seth earlier, you can't play any creature in standard. It gets removed so quickly. So all your creatures need to have insane value, either hexproof, indestructible, recur from the graveyard, draw you X cards when they enter the battlefield, remove a creature or something. Because when you play your 4-drop and then they play their 2-mana removal, you are set very far behind. So the only way to counteract that is to have your 4 CMC card do insane things. And then to offset that, you need your removal to do insane things. And then it just escalates. And then, what actually ends up happening is no one plays creatures or removals, and they play combo decks, right? So I don't know about those power creep business, but I would like to see them build interesting worlds, have like cool like lore or tribe or things like that, and try to sell sets based on that rather than like, this card is so good it slots into legacy, modern, vintage, and standard, so you're gonna buy it, right? Like,
right.
So,
well, okay.
Oh, go ahead, Graham.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, I'm still a fan, like of this higher power. I mean, I just don't ever want to go back to like an Ixalan kind of like looking format. But like, yeah, like this power, like the power increase has actually been quite enjoyable when you look at it from like M21, because I would say that's a lot of power. That set's really strong. I mean, Zendikar absolutely nailed it. So I like this power increase. And I mean, yeah, like a lot of the creatures do a little bit more. The answers need to get a little they're probably never going to make the answers better than the creatures again. So that's just, I right now don't feel like the answers are better than the creatures, but I do like the increase in power. So
I do think one thing you mentioned, Richard, was older formats, and I do dislike the power creep more in older formats. Personally, I'm more of a fan of like formats like Modern and Legacy changing much slower than they have over the past couple years. But I still think that without the mistake cards that have been printed, like maybe that's fine. Like maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. And the fact that we've had certain cards that are just so incredibly broken that they have broken literally every format, to the point where we had bannings in Vintage, which is not even something that you're supposed to have in that format, period. Like, maybe once the obvious mistake cards are dealt with, the power level will be okay in older formats and in standard. What do you think about the upcoming sets, Richard? You mentioned flavor selling sets rather than just raw power and pushing the cards. So we know we're going to Keldheim, some sort of like Viking-y Norse set. We know we're doing this like wizardy college academy set. And then we know we're doing D&D into Innistrad again. Are those, in your opinion, flavors that we'll be able to sell without being super push power level wise? Is that kind of what you're thinking of, or other things?
Who knows? We're gonna have to see the card. Like it when I heard of Eldraine, you're like fairy tales, like okay, right? But then the way they actually did it was like really cool, right? So same with Innistrad, right? I don't watch horror movies. I don't really care about zombies and vampires and things like that, right? But just the way they executed it was really good. So I don't care about Vikings or Norse mythology or whatever particularly, but if they execute on it very well, then it could be a very cool set. So I don't know. It's kind of up to Wizards, but I would rather see a cool mechanic, a cool frame or something and stuff like that, rather than like a 2-mana 8/8 trample hexproof or something in these sets, right? Like I would just rather the cards be cool, right? Like
super boggle.
We meme that like Modern is 2019 forward, right? Like all the cards you play in Modern are basically like standard cards, right? Like if you took Jund from like 2016 or something stock and played it against a standard deck nowadays, like I don't know how it goes, right? It's actually that debatable. So there's just like the power creep affects the older formats, and then it kills the charm of the older formats, right? The older formats are, you're supposed to play cards from Magic's history, not your standard deck plus some staples and then here you go, right? So yeah, I just don't really enjoy that aspect, but at the same time it sells so many packs, right? Like when there is a card in Zendikar Rising that is played in every format, including Commander, Modern, Pioneer, up to Vintage, people get hyped. People are like, wow, this card is so good. I need to buy 4 of. I need to buy, the VIP collection booster version because it is an all, format staple. And they go nuts, right? Like Fatal Push. As soon as there's some secret Lair version, people just buy it up, right? Because they know it's played in every single format. So it sells cards. So I don't know how you battle against both of that. Like, how do you prevent the old formats from getting overrun with new cards while at the same time selling the new cards because they're actually played in every single format and they won't rotate?
And I do think they already have been, like with collector's boosters and like the showcase art cards, like the fairy tale cards from Eldraine and the comic book cards from Ikoria. I do think that's another way they're going about it, which is like just printing cards that actually look cool. Even like I have a Brokos. I was cleaning out my car the other day and apparently I opened a collector's booster pack back when Ikoria came out and put it in my glove box. But it has the promo Brokos, and Brokos isn't a very good card. Like, Brokos isn't a card I'm really interested in playing, but it just looks so sweet. Like, it's a card, I'm looking at it right now, it's sitting on my desk now, and it just looks really cool. So even though the card's not cool, I'm like kind of happy that I have this copy of Brokos just because it's a really sweet looking Magic card.
Seth with random cards in his glove compartment. Was it a foil? Was it actually a tube at this point?
No, thankfully it was non-foil, so it survived. So what have you been playing in Standard? Like, Richard, you mentioned you've been playing the food deck, which we actually played on stream, and my experience has been that deck is really sweet as well. Krim, what have you been playing in Standard? Anything in specific I know you're playing a bunch of stuff, but anything in specific that's been super fun or stuck out to you?
I've actually really been enjoying the Doom Foretold decks, and on top of that, I've been really enjoying the Yorion deck, and I've been playing Grixis Control. And like a lot, actually, I've been playing a lot of Grixis Control. Anytime I can play good old 1-for-1, like I'm gonna counterspell you kind of Magic, I love it. Like, I am on board. And the mono green deck the food deck is a little problematic at points because I always forget that Wolf can just come down and be indestructible. But like, I think right now, like Grixis Control with a lot of exiling effects, like Eat to Extinction. That's how I've been playing. Eat to Extinction with a silly amount of graveyard hate.
Yeah, that sounds very much like I would expect you to be playing in our new Standard format. Bannings come in and Grim's like, oh, it's Grixis Control time.
Is it viable? No, but I'm gonna play it anyways.
Yeah, those decks are sweet. Like I said, I've been playing the food deck, which is really sweet. It's like mono green control almost. I think it's almost fair to call it that because when I think of mono green, I think of just like stomping people with creatures quickly. But this is a deck that really, instead you're like grinding out value and winning on like turn, I don't even know, 20 or something. I've also been trying desperately to make mono red stacks work. I really want to play Fiery Emancipation and play Torbrand and then just play like the random enchantments that ping people every turn. There's like Valaka Exploration and I haven't been able to get it to like really be good yet, but boy, it's really funny when it works. You just like, just stack up all that stuff and you're like, you're taking like 3 a turn from my random, what's that enchantment that you were really high on?
Roiling Vortex.
Yeah, you're taking like 3 a turn, or if you have Torbrand, you're taking like 12 a turn or something ridiculous from a single Roiling Vortex. So that's something that I think is neat. And even though that deck I don't think is very good, it's good enough that you can play it right now because it's so diverse and there's so much going on. You're gonna hit your good matchups once in a while and like pick up some wins with it. So I've been just loving Standard lately, honestly. Like it's been super, super fun.
Yeah. I like, and by the way, for that deck, if you play Irencrag Feat, one thing I've been adding is Leyline Tyrant. So then this way you can on 4 play Leyline Tyrant, save the 3 additional mana. And it's been a lot of fun. And of course, Leyline Tyrant itself, if they kill it and you have the excess mana and Emancipation up, you can deal a lot of damage with that. On top of that, with that exact same deck, the the one thing that I've had a lot of fun with is that even though Roiling Vortex hits myself for 3, that it is cool to see multiple vortexes stack and just take opponents out.
Yeah, definitely a fun idea. It reminds me of a lot of people's Torbrand's commander decks, actually. They're built around all those, like, effects that just randomly, like, mana barbs and stuff that randomly do that. You're like, hey, I got a Torbrand, so now you're taking a bunch of damage. It's kind of like the standard version of the Torbrand stacks commander decks, but definitely sweet that decks like that actually have a chance of succeeding. There's also, I don't know if you saw any of the Channel Fireball tournament yesterday, the CFB Showdown. There was someone that I believe top 8'd playing a mono basic land Phalanx ramp deck. It was like Felidare, the Felidare enchantment that makes cats, and the Phalanx that makes a bunch of plants when it comes into play with an entirely basic land mana base. And that was like good enough to actually win. So there's like some crazy stuff going on in Standard right now, and I'm finding it very enjoyable.
Wait, build your own Field of Dead.
You mean Phylath, right?
Phylath. I think I mixed it up with the Dimir God. That was kind of a hybrid of Phylath and Phoenix. Mix them together.
I'm just gonna. All right, I think I heard the name that I thought you said, and it sounded like you said a different word, but it's okay.
So any other Standard thoughts before we move on to some other topics? All right, so we got a new Secret Lair announcement today, a charity-ish Secret Lair. Richard, what are we getting in this Secret Lair drop that goes on sale in November?
All right, going on sale November 6th, $59.99, with half of it going to Extra Life charity. We have Amulet of Vigor. We have Collected Company, Consecrated Sphinx, and my favorite card, Teferi's Protection.
Yes.
4 cards.
So
I mean, this Secret Lair drop is like, just from a pure value perspective, I think this is the best Secret Lair drop that they've ever printed. Like, I kind of mathed it out, and if you're going to get the cheapest non-foil version of each of these cards, it would set you back around $100, and you get this for $60. So it's almost, just from a pure EV perspective, you're almost getting twice as much in card value as you spend on this drop, which normally that's not how Secret Lairs have been traditionally. Usually they're around break even, maybe even a little under EV wise, but then you're getting like special art to make up for it. So they really juice this from a value perspective for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, I like, on top of like the value of the cards that are here, the artwork is absolutely amazing, right? Like, I mean, like the Secret Lair, I mean, the Teferi's Protection art is absolutely gorgeous. And I really, really, really like that flavor text. It's so adorable and like, it's just great. And then you see the Coco art that has a Johnny, playing with like, you know, like other, like, what is a Johnny's
Leonin?
like Leonin, there it is. Other Leonin, like kids, and they're just hanging out and he's like training them. And I'm like, this is awesome. Even my dog agrees. That's why he's growling in the background.
The only one I don't especially understand or like art-wise is Amulet. Like, I don't know, I guess there's an Amulet on there, but I definitely agree. Coco and Teferi's Protection are really sweet. Consecrated Sphinx is kind of like, alright, I guess, art-wise, but yeah, it definitely looks like a pretty solid drop. What do you guys think of the charity aspect? So I tweeted about this, and there were a couple people who are like, you should be more critical of this. This is just Wizards trying to get a tax write-off. And really, like, sure, Wizards will get a tax write-off. They're donating half of it to a really good cause, though, and the value's there from a player's perspective, where you're getting a really good amount of cards, or value of cards, for its price. To me, it looks like a win-win-win. Like, sure, Wizards gets a tax write-off, but whatever, they're giving a lot of money to charity, and players are getting a good deal. What do you think of that criticism? Like, should we be viewing this skeptically for some reason?
I mean, it's possible that 2 people win when they meet, right? It's possible that Wizards gets a tax write-off and they get a victory, and Extra Life gets a bunch of money so they get a victory. And in fact, it's a 3-way win because players get the cards they want. So just because something good happens to one party doesn't mean something bad necessarily happens to everyone else. So I'm not sure what the criticism here is. Some may look at it as like, okay, is this the way they're making up for the response to The Walking Dead? Is this? I can't think of any other reason to criticize this. Like, they've had so many secret layers now. If you want the cards, this gives you the cards at a discount, and they're giving money to charity. So I don't know, right? Like I think it's good, right?
The only thing I would say is it's a little weird that they are back to only having foils after for a minute they had secret layers so you could choose foil or non-foil, and now it seems like they're back to only making foils. So I'm not really sure what the rhyme or reason of the printing process is. I just assumed when they announced that there was going to be a secret layer drop where you could choose if you wanted foil or non-foil, that's how they would all be moving forward. So that's not really a criticism, just I'm kind of puzzled why we did that for a minute and then we moved away from it so quickly, because I thought that was a cool option for people to have, because some people don't actually want the foils. But as far as this secret layer, there's not much not to like. And Teferi's Protection is a card that we really needed more copies of. And Teferi's Protection is like $40 by itself. If you need a copy for Commander, you get this for $60 and you get a bunch of other pretty good cards too. It seems like just a great option. You got something for Modern players, Eclectic Company, and Amulet. You got Commander players covered with Protection and also Consecrated Fakes. It seems just like one of the best secret layer drops they've done, and you get to help out a good charity. So I see it as a win-win-win.
I mean, I will say it is still very expensive, right? Every time we play Commander Clash and I have a really sweet deck, I'm like, maybe I'll build this in paper. And then I look at the actual paper price and I'm like, why is Teferi's Protection $1 million? And so I don't build it, right? And, even if you consider Teferi's Protection here $30 or $20, that's still $20 for a Magic card, right? And I still need 99 other cards. So the decks end up being pretty expensive anyway. So in that sense, even though it lowers the price of Teferi's Protection, it doesn't lower it to $1, right? It's still a very expensive card. And then I don't want to buy it. And then therefore I don't want to build paper EDH decks, right? So
but Richard,
to me, effectively, it doesn't change much.
What about 3 visits?
Yeah. So when that card is $2, I will buy it. It's just so expensive. It's not worth it. Just play budget Commander, man. It's the same fun without breaking the bank.
I mean, that is true, but I don't know if that's really a criticism of the secret layer either. That's more a criticism of the Magic economy as a whole, I think, than of the secret layer in specific, because I feel like it's a pretty fair price. I don't look at this and think, wow, that's way overcosted. I guess it is true. The other thing I guess you could criticize would be they do tend to jack up the prices whenever they do a charity drop, which I remember, I think it was the International Women's Day drop. They added $10 or $20 to the price, it felt like, compared to all the other drops. So it does feel a little bit sometimes Wizards is getting everyone else to give to charity, but still, it's a fair amount of cards for its price. It's cards you actually need to play formats. It's really hard for me to nitpick this one.
Yeah, I think they absolutely nailed this whole drop, and really like the artwork. It's just really nice artwork. This is I think that's the main thing that's going to make me jump on this, is this artwork and the flavor text on the cards, all of them, or the 3 that have them.
All right. So we got one other topic that I wanted to bring up today before we get to Fishmail, and that is leaks in Magic. So if you've been keeping track of Commander Legends, it was initially supposed to, I think, come out the end of this week, and spoiler season was supposed to start a week ago. It got pushed back due to printing or shipping or some sort of delays. But basically, some boxes filtered out into the public. I don't know how that happened, but boxes got out in the public. Those boxes were sold on eBay, and people have been opening their boxes and posting the cards that they opened in their boxes and in their packs on places like Reddit, other social media platforms. So at this point, a pretty meaningful chunk of Commander Legends has leaked. I don't think it's literally the entire set, but it feels like most of the set at this point. If you want to scour the internets, you can pretty much find more or less close to the entire set. So this has brought up the conversation about leaks in Magic again, which comes up every so often. How do you guys interact with leaks? Like, that was my first question for you. So something like this happens, a bunch of cards leak. Do you look at them? Like, do you go check out the new cards, or do you wait and think, well, eventually these will come out officially?
I usually don't look at them because I myself I think it's like, I'll wait until it's like officially announced. It's more, that's how it is for me. I mean, I know that there's like some obvious like upsides, I mean, I guess as weird as it sounds, there's some advantages of taking a look at these cards early because, I mean, you get to know, hey, maybe this archetype is now valid or something like that and get a head start. But I myself usually just ignore the leaks.
What about you, Richard? How do you interact with leaks?
So I tend to not read them anymore. Like the only reason to read them is what Krim hinted at, is to get a head start on the financial aspects, right? There's some actual real repercussions of this, right? Repercussions of this. So if there is a card that supports a new archetype, all the supporting cards will spike up in price, especially if it's something very popular, right? For example, if it's a popular tribe like zombies or something, and there's like going to be a new, like maybe zombie mill is a thing, there will be a bunch of cards that will spike up. Or other things like I'm gonna spoil a card right on cast for you. 3 Visits is reprinted, right? That has a lot of repercussions, right? Like the price will drop, right? So if you know about this, you would try to unload your 3 Visits as quickly as possible, or you would know not to buy your 3 Visits until the set releases. So I think in that regards, it's important to know about the leaks. But in terms of like flavor or getting a head start on brewing and those things, like I'd rather just wait on the official release, especially the way the leaks are happening. Like they are foreign cards, blurry camera, people trying to translate and things like that. It's just a better experience to experience it the official way. But if you are buying paper Magic cards and money, you want to save money and things like that, you need to know about all the leaks, right? So you can't really just ignore them because there'll be big financial repercussions for you.
Yeah, that's more or less where I land on them as well. I do tend to look at them. We used to do a lot more with them, honestly. Like we wrote articles about leaks and stuff. We've mostly moved away from actually like doing content about leaks. And I personally moved away from even like tweeting the card images or anything, because I know there are people that choose to try to avoid all leaks. And I think it's a really respectable position. Like if you're someone that doesn't want to see leaks, I think you should have the option and not have those, splash in front of your face in a way that you can't see them. On the other hand, as Richard mentioned, like there are legitimate financial reasons. And for some people, their primary concern of playing Magic is being able to get the cards they need as cheaply as possible because they don't have a huge budget to be able to play Magic. We were just talking about Teferi's Protection. Yeah, it's kind of reprinted. That's a $40 card. That's a lot for some people. That's a lot for a lot of people, honestly. Magic is an expensive game. So I feel like there is value to giving people the option to examine the leaks if they need to or choose to, because for some people the financial aspect is the real concern here, and some people just can't afford to be like, okay, I'm gonna avoid these for flavor purposes or whatever. Like I want to see them spoiled in the way they were intended to be spoiled. Some people can't afford to make that choice when the cost of that is they're gonna have to spend a lot more for their cards, or they're gonna buy 3 Visits for $200 without realizing that it's gonna be $2 in a couple of weeks once the set comes out. So I feel like everyone needs to be able to make their own decisions. Do you think there's any way to stop these? Like, how do you think this one happened? Do you think this is a COVID related, like, that thing because of the shipping delay that Wizards actually like had boxes printed and some of them accidentally got shipped to someone who put them on eBay? Or do you think it's more sketchy, like someone stole them from a factory or something?
I mean, it is stolen.
I thought people just bought them early, right?
Yeah, it is stolen, but I don't know to what.
Was it stolen?
It is though, right?
I thought these were like some store got them and then put them on sale like too early. or something like that, and then someone snatched them up. But regardless of how it happens, there's a couple easy ways to fix this, right? So one, as soon as a leak happens, you like squash the leak part of it and release it all officially, right? So that you level the information playing field, and like everybody that cares will know about these cards, and they don't have to dig through like, you know, shady corners of the MTG community digging up leaks and stuff like that, right? You're like, look, okay, this thing leaks, and Wizards has done that sometimes, right? Sometimes a chase mythic or something gets leaked, and then like a day or two later, it shows up on the daily update, and they're like, hey, there's this card. Other times, they've just like completely ignored it, right? And they've done nothing. The other thing they can do is just have preview season a lot earlier, right? The minute you have boxes being sent out, so if you're worried about stores leaking, right? The minute your boxes are starting to ship out to distributors, you do preview season. So like the cards can't be leaked. If you're worried about your factories leaking it, the places that actually print these things, you can do preview season as soon as they've gone to printers, right? So there are ways to fix this by just moving preview season up. So I think Wizards can actually deal with this. And then the last one is like severely punish those that have a leak, right? Like, you know, for example, your bank information is very important, right? If it gets leaked out, it's very problematic. There are like government regulations and things like that put in place to prevent this from happening, right? Like they're severely punished if things go wrong. So Wizards can like bring the hammer down on distributors or stores or whoever who, you know, accidentally release product early or don't have the security in place to prevent people from like running out of the factory with a box or whatever. So I don't know, Wizards can do a lot, but they just seem to not care. Like they're like, something happened. Hopefully it doesn't happen again next time. Cross our fingers, right? Like, because this keeps happening every preview season now, right? Like it was actually shocking for like 2 or 3 preview seasons we went through without a leak. But now we're back to there's a leak, right? And then not only a leak, but a leak of like almost the entire set, right?
Do you think it's because of the way they pushed back the previews? And that maybe this, like, when did the leak go up?
That's probably what happened, right? Like
right.
They pushed back the stuff, and then like some store or something didn't get notified or something, and then it went out, or it's probably related to that, probably related to COVID in some way. But I don't know, right? Like that's kind of the norm now, right? You will have production delays, you will have stuff like that, so they should be able to deal with it.
Yeah, this has been a pretty big one. It's been a while. You mentioned that it had been pretty good. The last few sets, like, actually pretty impressive that we hadn't had many leaks, because we were getting at least some every set, and we had some really big ones in the past. Like, I remember the Ixalan sheet leak. There was a massive, like, basically the entire set of Dominaria leaked. So we've had some really, really massive leaks, and it kind of reminds me of those, where this is another one of those huge ones. I do feel like Wizards should try to take it more seriously. And I do think that, like, punishing the people that leak is very fair. Like, I don't think that my opinion has always been, and it still is, like, once a leak is like on the top of r/Magic TCG or like some very accessible and known place in the community, at that point, it's kind of like pretending like it doesn't exist is to some extent just like ignorant of how the internet works. Like once something is to that stage,
remove it from the internet.
Like it's it's just the cat's out of the bag at that point. But I do think that Wizards, and maybe they do and we don't hear about it, but I do think Wizards should severely punish people who actually do the leaking. Whoever is, you know, putting the pictures on Reddit or selling the boxes early on eBay or stealing the sheet from the factory or whatever. Like, I feel like the hammer really should come down on that, and maybe people would think twice. Maybe the internet, I don't know, cred that people get from leaking is still enough that people are going to do it anyway. But I would hope that harsh repercussions would make people think twice. I do think moving up spoiler season might be tough, just because I feel like Wizards wants to have spoiler season and then release the set so they can start selling the set when people are at like maximum hype from spoiler season. And if you did spoiler season like a month early and then just went back to normal for a while and then all of a sudden the set went on sale, I don't know, people are going to forget or maybe not be as hyped about it as they were during spoiler season. So I do think that like having spoiler season lead up to release is probably important for marketing purposes. But I do think that Wizards should definitely take stronger action to try to keep it from happening, because it does to some extent. It always leads to arguments in the community, for one thing, and it takes away from what should be a fun time of just people getting to look at new Magic cards and talking about new Magic cards. Instead, we end up in this position where it's people fighting about leaks, which I think like just reduces the fun of the entire experience. And then you do have like secondary concerns, like theoretically it could hurt content creators who have their card leaked, although whether or not that actually happens is certainly up for debate. I know like some videos in content based on spoiler content based on leak cards have done just as well as cards that were not leaked for spoiler content. So I don't really know if that's a major consideration, but I do think something should be done, because it's just sad to have the community all like fighting about leaks and where a card came from, instead of being like, wow, that's a really sweet card. Like, what commander deck can I build with it? Or, you know, where would I draft this? What kind of deck would I draft it in? Or can I play it in Legacy? So it just shifts the focus from something that should be really fun and positive into something that is often negative, I think, which is kind of sad. Anyway, any other leak thoughts, or should we hit up some Fishmails? All right, Richard, Fishmail us.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. So first question, Future Greg299. With the implementation of Arena, it's clear that letting players playtest is the best way to get the most data. Will WotC ever use streamers and people close to WotC to play the sets early to weed out future banning issues?
I mean, we kind of do right now, right? I mean, with like early access event, at least for like letting streamers and other people play the sets early. Because technically
I feel that doesn't actually change balance though, right? That's
it does.
Like maybe they find a bug. Yeah.
Yeah.
But is it the like literally the play design team? Like, is this right? It's like hand-picked people. A lot of them are ex-pros or people high in Magic or whatever, and they play test. But the issue is it's like a small team. So if you actually want the actual mass data, you need to do a beta or something. Which we've talked about before. You can't really do that. You can't do like a playtest realm or anything like that, because we have the paper version of the game, which needs to be printed way beforehand, and then therefore you can't make the balance updates necessary from your data. So Wizards is just kind of straddling the line between physical and digital, and they can't really do anything here.
Yeah, I mean, they have a beta for Magic Online, but it's more used to like test new features rather than to test new cards. I think something like that would be awesome. But as you said, like, how would the timing work? Are you going to have like the fall, like Zendikar Rising in some sort of beta like a year ahead of time? Is that even practical? So then you'd have time to print the cards, and I think the logistics is probably the sticking point.
Yeah, and the cards would have to go under a code name, like I don't know, Banana Gun or something like that.
And we were just talking about leaks, like, yes, you'll NDA people, and yes, you'll tell people not to do it, but will everyone actually do that? Probably not. So you are kind of creating another potential source for leaks. I guess maybe you can get around it to some extent by using fake names and stuff, but still you are
just
kind of
release the
opening
actual
the door
cards, right? Like every other game, there's like no secret that there's a new character coming or something, and you're all playtesting it, right? It's just public information. Like the game should be. The problem is Magic is like relying on this like secretive aspect of it, like, what is the flavor of the new cards, or what is the name, or what is the power, and things like that. Whereas other games are like, look, this is happening, right? Test it for a month and then we release it balanced, and then there you go. Right? Whereas Magic is like, oh, but it's the surprise and the deck building and the brewing and things like that. So it doesn't translate over to Magic as well. Same with like every other game, right? They're like, here, have all the data, have all the win percentages, have all the pieces of data. Here's an API, go at it. Magic is like, no, right? Secret, right? We can't give you this because the metagame will solve too fast and the game will be broken. So, like if you played Standard on a public test realm, let's say you played Oko on a public test realm for like 3 months. Are you going to play Oko some more when it releases in Standard proper? Like maybe you're done, right? Like I've played enough Oko, I don't want to play this anymore. So yeah, there are some challenges to bringing these other aspects into into Magic. At Bicycle, it seems like the online EDH community dislikes partners, planeswalkers as commanders, free spells, and made for EDH staples. They still get made. Is there a disconnect between EDH players and WotC? Is there an offline casual segment that enjoys these things?
So I personally dislike those things, and I definitely have seen kind of the general mood around the online commander community also being against those things. I think casuals might just not care. Like, I just don't know if they care about things like that, because if you're playing casually, you probably don't care about having a free counter spell or whatever. So, I mean, are there people like them? I guess so. I certainly have been critical of Arcane Signet, and then I definitely have had people be like, I like Arcane Signet. So I guess to some extent, there are people who do like them. How the numbers break down, though, how do you know? There's not really any way to know, especially since even if you do a poll or something, it's going to be biased and skewed towards the people that are online, because those are the people that'll see the poll.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the less this casual segment makes sense to me. So on one hand, like when you play any game, like let's say you play a board game, right? You're probably a casual, right? Like there's probably like 2 different teams or like 4 different things you can do, and like, are they 100% balanced? Like, who knows? You play it like one time with your friends and then you never play it again. So like you're never gonna know the in-depth strategies. And I'm sure there are Magic players that do this, right? They pick up a precon, they play, they find some synergy in their deck, and they're done. Like, are the colors balanced? Who knows? Are the decks balanced? They don't know, right? Can they even like operate their deck? Maybe, right? But will these people actually spend hundreds of dollars on Magic? Like, are these the people you're going after? Or do they just spend like $10, $15 and call it a day? Right? Like when you're trying to sell like $50 cards, $60 secret layers, Nefarious Protection, $100 precon sets and things like that, those players are probably the invested players that actually read about the game, that talk about it on Reddit and things like that. So those are your invested people. And I think like there's probably more casual players, but the amount of money they bring has to be less than like the actual like hardcore fans that read about information online, right? Like if you're a casual, like why would you pay $100 for a deck or like $500 for a deck? It doesn't really make any sense to me. So the more I think about it, I think there are a lot of casuals, but they don't spend that much money. So you should probably care about like these people really venting on Reddit and things like that about planeswalkers as commanders and things like that. Nope. Seth, did you have something to add? No.
Yeah, I was waiting to see if Grim was going to say anything, but yeah, I mean that's been my experience as someone who started off playing as a casual, like, and I think most people start off playing pretty casually, and we had a big box of cards that someone had growing up that ended up at our apartment in college, and that's what we played with. And maybe we picked up, like, I remember like a vampire themed pre-con deck that one of the people in the play group thought was really cool because they love vampires, and they picked that up and threw in random cards from the big box of cards. It was like the communal collection for the most part, and that was their deck. So my experience as a casual player was definitely that the people I played with did not spend a lot of money on Magic cards. We were playing with the cards that we had, and then occasionally someone would get a precon, or maybe you'd grab a booster pack just for fun when you were checking out somewhere. But you definitely weren't buying hundreds of dollars of Magic cards, and at the time, this is way before collector's boosters, but there's no way anyone in the casual play group that I was in would even consider spending, $100 on a booster pack or $350 on a booster pack. And the whole idea of like EV and like, oh, it's going to be worth it and you'll get more in cards than you spend, like that wouldn't have mattered anything to, to us at that point either. So I think you're right. What you were suggesting about casuals match up pretty much with my experience starting out playing Magic as a very casual player.
All right. Next question. 2D dimensional. I'm considering playing Magic Online while Paper Modern is on hiatus. I'm concerned about the cost. $10 for an account, $5 to $10 per week for card rental. League costs are negligible, assuming my win rate is greater than 50%. Is my math accurate?
Yes, basically. That sounds about correct to me. If you can win 50% in leagues, you should break even or come out slightly ahead over the long run. Loan program's going to depend mostly on what you want to play. You could do it for just a couple of bucks a week if you're going to play Pauper or something, but if you're going to play more expensive formats, Yeah, it's going to be, because I think it's like 3%-ish of your like maximum account value. So yeah, you're probably going to spend, $5-10 a week for the most part to play formats like Pioneer Modern or something. So yeah, those numbers sound about right. Is it cheap? Not exactly. The only thing I would say, if you can win more than 50%, one of the unique aspects of Magic Online compared to Arena is you actually could like win leagues and use your profits to pay for your loan program. So yeah, you break even at 50%, but if you can get up to like 55% or 60% for sure, you'll probably be able to play for free, including paying for your loan account with your winnings from playing.
Yeah, I would look at the loan program. So loan programs are great if you want to bounce around decks. Like that's literally the point. Like you can play one deck today, and then tomorrow if you want a completely different deck, you can swap it out. But if you're just playing like a single deck, it's probably better to just buy it because you can sell it back later. And then any money you put into Magic Online, like the actual Magic Online, like in tickets, you can take back out. So that's where it's unique from Magic Arena. Whereas like the loan program, it's like a rental, right? So you're just paying the money and then it's gone. But like you could buy like a tier 1 deck, play leagues for like a month and then sell it back and lose like 10% of the deck value, and you may come out on top because you won enough from your leagues. So just look at that. If you are only going to play one deck, then it's probably better to buy and sell that deck later. But if you want to play like 5, 6, 7 different decks, then loan programs will be the better one. Z-Lock 1. How long before WotC starts adding new cards to Standard via Secret Lair to fix Standard instead of banning cards?
That would be amazing. I mean, right now Standard's good, but at some point, I don't see it happening. That'd be essentially what an emergency printing, right? I don't see an emergency printing happening, but I mean, it would be cool, right? Like when Field of the Dead was running rampant. We're going to actually have Field of Ruin immediately added to the set. Now, with Arena,
Goblin Crater Maker or whatever.
Yeah, Goblin Crater Maker. You have like Field of Ruin to add to the meta, but like, the one way you could do it, this would be a lot easier if, Magic didn't, I mean, I love paper Magic, but if Magic didn't have the paper half of it, you could easily just do what they do on Arena right now. Randomly, like the Goblin Bombardment enchantment or whatever is added to the best of 1 queue, right? There's a lot of best of, like Arena exclusive cards that are available in best of 1 queue. So if Wizards were to ever cut ties with the paper half, they could totally do where like, at least competitively, right? Where we're talking like Standard and whatnot, that cut ties with the paper half. They could easily then just start emergency, like adding cards to the format.
Yeah, I would hate it if it was new cards. I'm just like blanket against unique cards being printed in Secret Lair. I do think the idea of like, hey, here's this old card that we could just be like, it's legal now. And if you want to release a Secret Lair and have some new art, like whatever, go for it. Like I've come to grips with Secret Lairs being a thing that's going to keep happening. But I think if it was reprints, I think that's kind of an interesting idea. Although I do remember, I think it was the Aetherworks Marvel banning. That was something that Wizards actually directly addressed in the BNR announcement. They said they considered it, but had decided against that. Maybe they will change their thinking and try doing it. But last we have heard from Wizards on that idea, they thought about it and decided not to go that direction.
Adding new cards, emergency, like reprinting cards, stuff like that. All that just gets a lot easier with a digital thing. So I would personally like to see it, but
you guys say this and it like horrendously scares me, right? It's like another avenue for Wizards to sell even more cards. So first, they release like a super broken Chase Mythic so that everyone has to buy the latest set, and then it dominates the meta, setting them up perfectly for a Secret Lair answers where you have to buy the Secret Lair to get the answers to the broken Chase Mythic you just released, like doubling their revenue. Like this all scares me. Stop talking, stop giving them ideas.
Yeah,
Wizards, don't listen to any of this, please.
That is true, actually. When you say it like that is definitely very terrifying. Oh, we're going to purposely put Omnath into the format, and then
they get to sell even more cards, right?
EA.
How about this new shiny Fatal Push we get to put in Standard now, just to solve, this problem? Here,
it's the EA approach, right?
All right, that's all the time we have for Fishmail this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have Fishmail, send them to @MTGGoldfish on Twitter with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 299 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Grimm, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. We will be back next week to talk about Commander Legend spoilers and whatever else goes down in the world of Magic. So until then, have a wonderful week, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.